Welcome back again. In the previous video we created the geometry for tutorial 6. In this session we will start on the toolpaths. To start off we will set up the stock to be machined and then face the top of the part. The final step in this session will be to rough out the pockets with a 1-inch diameter end mill. Let's get started. Previously I set up the machine type to mill default, and as you can see on the left I've also displayed the toolpath manager by pressing Alt-O on my keyboard. What I'm going to do now is set up the stock. I'm going to pick the plus sign in front of properties and then click on stock setup. In this tutorial we're going to be using bounding box. That's a function that automatically finds the extents of the part based on the part geometry we've created. I'm going to select bounding box and I'm just going to slide the bounding box dialog box up. Starting at the very top you can see there's a check mark against all entities. Moving on down in the create section, the only check mark is against stock. What we'll be doing is creating the red dashed lines that represent our stock. We don't want to create any additional lines, arcs or points. Moving on down in the expand section, I'm going to leave everything set at 0. I don't want to expand any of the values for the stock size, and as you can see at the bottom the shape is set to rectangular. I'm going to move down to the bottom and hit OK. As you can see the X, Y and Z has been input for us. What I'm going to do is change the Z from an inch to 1.1. The X and Y are going to stay as is. Moving over to the left in the stock origin, I'm also going to change the Z value to 0.1. Display and fit screen are turned on, so everything looks good here. Let's move on up now into tool settings. Over on the left in the feed calculation area you can see it's been calculated from tool. Over on the right for tool configuration I'm going to check assign tool numbers sequentially and also check warn of duplicate tool numbers. Moving on down to the advanced options, I'm going to check override defaults with modal values and also check clearance, retract and the feed plane. Moving over to the right, the sequence numbers, I'm going to start at 1 and move up in increments of 1. Now the material at present is aluminum inch 2024. I'm going to change that. I'm going to pick select. Now at the bottom of this dialog box in the source section I'm going to open up this drop down and pick library, and then from this list I'm going to select aluminum inch 6061 and then pick OK. Everything looks great here. I'm going to pick OK, and as you can see the red dashed line represent our stock. I'm going to move on up and get a top view and also do a fit. Let's now move on to step 8. We're going to face the top of this part. I'm going to pick toolpaths and then move on down and pick face toolpath. Now if you look at the prompt on the right hand side it says select OK to use define stock or select chain 1. Well, I'd like to use the stock, so I'm going to move over to the left in the chaining dialog box and just pick OK. We're going to be using a face mill and we're going to create one from scratch. So over in the white area I'm going to right mouse click and then select create new tool. Now we're creating a face mill, so I'm going to click on the face mill icon. Now, in this section that dimensions this tool, I'm going to change a couple of things. For the diameter, I'm going to change it to 3.0, and then moving on to the left for the outside diameter, I'm going to change that to 3.5 and hit enter. So everything looks good here. Next, I'm going to move over to parameters. Now, the first thing I'm going to do here is change the feed rate. I'm going to input 20 inches a minute for the feed rate. For the plunge rate, I'm going to slow that down to 10 inches. And for the retract, I'm going to take it back to 20 inches a minute. For the spindle speed, I'm going to set that at 200 RPM. The tool name, I'm going to input 3-inch face mill. Everything looks good here. If I move over to the top right hand corner, you can see Save to Library. I'm going to click on this button, and what this will do is save this information in this file name, mill-inch. I'm going to pick Save, I'm going to pick OK, and I can use this tool in other jobs that I work on. Otherwise, the tool will be available just for this current job. Everything looks great here. I'm going to move down the bottom and hit OK. So we've set up the tool. This is tool number 1. I'm going to change the length offset to 1, and let's update the comment. Facing the top of the part. So everything looks good on this page. As you can see, feed rate, plunge rate has been taken from the information that we put in earlier on for the tool. Let's move over to facing parameters. Starting at the top, I'm going to turn on the clearance in absolute. It's set to 2, so that's good. Moving on down, retracts in absolute at 0.25, that's good. The feed plane is incremental at 0.1, that's going to stay as is. Top of stock is in absolute 0.1, good. And the depth, I'm going to leave it in absolute at Z0, so that looks good. I'm just going to move over to the right and move between cuts. I'm going to change that to linear, a linear move. Everything looks good here. I'm going to pick OK. So we've successfully faced the top of the part. Let's move on now and rough out the 2 pockets. I'm going to go into Toolpaths and then pick Pocket Toolpath. Over on the left in the chaining dialog box, I'm going to enable C-plane. What this will do is chain only entities that are parallel to the current construction plane and at the same Z depth as the first entity in the chain that I pick. What I'm going to do now is move on up and get an isometric view. Now the prompt, select pocket chain 1. What I'm going to do is pick this entity that's at the bottom of the pocket on the left. Now select pocket chain 2. What I'm going to do is move over to the right pocket and pick this entity that's lying at the bottom of this pocket. So we've picked both the chains in these pockets. I'm going to move back to the chaining dialog box and pick OK at the bottom. Now we need to select a tool. So what I'm going to do is pick on Select Library Tool, and I'm going to use the filter. Now moving over in the tool type section, I'm going to pick None, and then next I'm going to move up and hit the icon for flat end mills. Now moving over to the right in the tool diameter section, I've got it set to equal, and what I'm looking for is a 1-inch diameter cutter. So I've input 1.0, everything looks good here. Next I'm going to pick OK, and as you can see I've successfully filtered out a 1-inch flat end mill. I've selected it. I'm now going to move down and pick OK. This is tool number 2. Length offset, I'm going to change that to 2. Moving on down in the comment section, rough out all pockets. So everything looks good here. Let's move on to the next page, pocketing parameters. Clearance, retract, feed plane, top of stock, everything looks good. For the depth, I'm going to change that to incremental and leave it at 0. Now, this is a roughing operation. XY stock to leave, I'm going to set that to 0.03, 30 thou. So we're going to leave 30 thou on the walls of this pocket. Everything looks great here. Let's move over to roughing, finishing parameters. At present, the cutting method is zigzag. I'm going to change it to constant overlap spiral. Moving on down, I'm going to uncheck minimize tool burial, and I'm going to keep checked spiral inside to outside. So it's going to start machining out this pocket in the center and then working its way out. I'm also going to move on down and disable finish. So everything looks good here. I'm going to pick OK. And there's our pocket. Let's verify the two toolpaths that we've just completed. I'm going to move over and pick select all operations. I'm going to move over to the right now and pick verify. I'm just going to slide this verify dialog box up. I'm going to slow the speed down and move on up and hit the machine button. So there's our facing operation, and up next is our 1-inch diameter end mill, and this is a roughing operation, and we're leaving 30 thou on the walls of this pocket. I'm going to pick OK, and that completes this video. Thanks a lot for watching.